garden. Found a little surprise in the chicken coop this morning. So I'm kind of thinking I should make pierogies today. I've got potatoes ready in the garden, and I've got some homemade cheddar cheese, got some eggs, and I'm feeling like it's gonna storm today. I've got a kind of thunderstorm feel to that sky, so might be a good pierogi making day. I love an August garden. There's nothing like kind of the wildness that it takes on. This is not my best garden ever. For example, that blank space over there, that was all corn, but I used old seed and none of it came up. Or well, very few of it came up. And then we've got potatoes and sunflowers and pumpkins and squash, more potatoes, just a variety of different things. Yeah, so I love an August garden. It's just so wild and beautiful, but I'm gonna dig these potatoes I've been digging for just like summer eating. So I'm gonna dig some of these ones. My little herb garden is just bustling over there. Lots of weeds, but there's lots of food in there too. So many worms. If you wanted to go fishing, this potato patch would be the place to dig. So many. Alright, so in this weedy little patch here, there's a little story that goes along with these tiny onions. So you can see that there is some onions in there. Now these onions I actually grew from seed. I stuck seeds straight in the ground and little onions are coming up. Now I always thought that you have to start onions in the house in like early, like February in our zone. But my neighbor, we were both picking up chicks at the feed store at the same time. She's been gardening for 60 years in this area, and she gave me a package of onion seeds and said, put these just right in the ground. Well, actually she gave me kind of a tour of the different seeds that she uses at the feed store. It was like this invaluable experience, so cool. He went over to take Mama's cooler back, bud. Yeah, he'll be right back. Anyways, so took me for a little tour around, showed me the seeds that she always plants, handed me these onion seeds and says plant these directly in the ground instead of doing onion sets if you haven't already like started your onions, or like those little onion bulbs. And so I was like, okay, I wasn't really sure. So I put them in, and I mean, obviously they're not to the size of a regular onion yet at all, and I obviously planted them way too close, but I've been just slowly thinning them as like shallots or chalets or whatever, however you say that. And I'm just gonna see how big they get. But I mean, we're really at the beginning of August here, so they could potentially get a lot bigger. And I have never had luck putting those little onion bulbs in and getting anything bigger than maybe like a small, you know, a little bit bigger than a golf ball. Maybe like, sometimes biggest onion I've ever got is maybe a tennis ball. So really not that big as far as how I want them to be. I want a softball. So I don't think these are going to be softballs, but they might be, you know, just as big as when I planted the little onion bulbs. So anyways, it's an experiment, but I'm going to grab some of these for our pierogies. I'm going to just thin out some of the thicker ones on the back. 'Tis the season for abundant shirt baskets. Right. And if we're going to have pierogies, we must have homegrown bacon. Feels like a rule. So my garlic is just curing in the shop here. I'm gonna roast some to go into our pierogies. I want to keep some of this garlic for seed garlic, so I'm just going to pick the ones that are least ideal seed garlics. Probably these two, they're kind of small. I've got some nice big ones in here. There's a good garlic here for me. Anyway, so we'll take these, the wee little ones. There is absolutely a storm coming in. I'm gonna go and start cooking these potatoes so that we can have some pierogies and something to do when it's kind of stormy outside.
There's a week, but then like if we don't cook one day, we can cook the same count. Yeah, I'll just be paid at that week.
So I decided that I was just going to boil my garlic in with my potatoes. I often do this. Sometimes I will roast the garlic before you add it in with your potatoes, and then that makes that really nice roasted garlic flavor, which is really irreplaceable. But if you don't want to do that, and today I didn't want to heat up the kitchen, I just threw my garlic bulbs in with my potatoes while they're boiling, and that's also going to add a nice garlic flavor to my pierogi filling. Then I got started making my pierogi dough. Now this recipe is super simple. You can find it down below, but it's really a not very complicated recipe to make at all. All you're going to do is combine 4.5 cups of flour with 2 teaspoons of salt. You're going to mix those together and then you're going to set them aside, and then you're going to mix your wet ingredients. So for these wet ingredients, I use 2 cups of clabber, and if you don't know what clabber is, you can check out all of the resources that I have on clabber culture down below. I talk about it a ton on this channel, so I actually use clabber culture as a cheese making starter culture for all of the different cheeses that I make, but I also use the discard of it a lot in my kitchen and in the cooking that I do for my family. So you're going to use 2 cups of clabber. If you don't have access to clabber, you can use sour cream. So you're going to find that most traditional pierogi recipes ask for a sour cream, but I just replace that with clabber because it's something that I just always have in my kitchen. So we'll go 2 cups of clabber, then you're going to do 3 eggs. I've got those nice farm fresh eggs that I grabbed from the chicken coop this morning, and then you're going to go 1/2 cup of an oil of your choice. I like to use olive oil, but you could use any sort of liquid oil. Now, part of my problem in the kitchen is that I'm very much a measure with my heart, don't really pay too much attention to measurements sort of cook, which often gets me into little pickles. And today what I did was I actually added in about 3 cups of clabber, so it really kind of set me off with a really sticky dough, and then I ended up having to add about an extra cup of flour throughout the whole kneading process just to make my dough workable. Now pierogi dough is actually a super soft, beautiful, workable dough that isn't hard to work with at all. So if you're finding that it's sticky or it's just not coming together very good, you might just need to make a little bit of adjustments in the dry ingredients that you have or the wet ingredients. So that is something that you are more than welcome to do as well. And if you follow the actual recipe directions and get the actual quantities, you should be golden and you're not going to have to make as many adjustments as I did in today's video. So anyways, I'm going to combine these liquid ingredients and then I'm going to add them in with my dry ingredients, and then I'm just going to mix them together until everything's wet, and then I'm going to let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes while I go on to make the filling. And I like to let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes just to allow the dough some time to rest, and it's just going to be so much easier to knead and work later on. Now, when I made the filling, I actually turned the camera off. I thought I turned it on, but I turned it off. So what I did for the filling was I had those potatoes that I dug this morning from the garden. I had that garlic that I grabbed from the shop. I used about 3 cloves in with my potatoes. I boiled them until they are fork tender, and then I added in about 1.5 cups of homemade cheddar cheese. Now, my homemade cheddar cheese has some annatto in it because Echo, my daughter, and I, we made that cheese together a couple months ago. It was like marbled sort of cheddar cheese, and then we did some dill from the garden, and we also did
a little bit of chives, of those chives that we were cutting up, just the tops of them. So once I did that, I got the filling ready, and then I came back to knead my dough.
I have this crack in the counter, you can see it, it's filled with grout. But because of that crack, my counter only extends this much, so if I'm making anything that needs to be rolled out more than that, I have to lay down parchment paper so I don't get stuff in the grout. It's like almost right in the center of the counter. I love this counter though, my friend gave it, or like made it for us. Because we used to have a dresser here that was like our center counter, and they liked that idea so much that in their kitchen, when they were renovating it, he built a center counter to kind of replicate that. And then as a thank you for the idea, which like the idea was like it was just a dresser in the middle of our kitchen, but he made this. He made me one exactly like theirs. More flour. Generous. I hate having sticky hands. Flour my hands. We're just gonna knead this smooth. We're gonna let this sit for 5-10 minutes. And then we'll come back and roll it out. And while I do that, I'm gonna get my filling all ready. Alright. So we've got our completely homemade filling. Potatoes and spices from the garden, cheese from the cows. Oh wait, no, I can't say completely homemade. We used some store-bought butter in there, and some salt and pepper, but pretty good. All right, now I'm going to cut this dough into 4 pieces and start to roll it out. So I didn't grow up making pierogies. I learned as an adult, but my grandma did make a version of pierogies when I was a kid. She called them perogies, but they were basically just leftover roast beef that she would grind up with like onions and some spices. Then she'd make a simple pierogi dough, and then she would fry them in tallow or whatever fat that she had, and they were like fried pierogies. They were excellent, and that was what the type of pierogies that I grew up with, and I didn't know there was another kind until I was a little bit older. There we go. Nice and workable. And so we're gonna go for about 1/4 inch. And you'll see that they'll actually end up being a bit thinner than 1/4 inch, just because when we fold them and add in our filling, we kind of stretch the dough over top of the filling. And so this kind of makes them be a little bit less thinner. Or a little bit thinner, I guess. Take your mason jar lid and just start going. I mean, if you have a cookie cutter, it'll be a little easier. But mason jar lid, and then just round it, and that should get them good enough. Okay. Takes some work, but it's a really great way to preserve some of the harvest in a way that you can eat right away. Convenient food. That's how cheese is too. Cheese is the ultimate convenience food. Okay, so we have our little circles. Now we're going to take this. This is about a tablespoon. I'm going to drop that in there. Go. And now you're going to take an edge. Just kind of tuck your filling in there. You don't want your filling to escape. And just go over and then just kind of squeeze your sides. And if your dough's not sticky enough, you can add a little water around the edges to help it stick. So just dab your water on there to help it stick. There. All right, so we ended up with 4 dozen pierogies and quite a bit of filling left. I always do that, always have too much filling, but that's okay. This is really good for like potato pancakes or the top of a casserole or something like that. So a little bit of filling left, and I'm just letting those pierogies freeze, and then we'll have some for dinner tonight.
Do you have a recipe for pizza dough?
Yeah. We have to go to town to get his bike.
Do you need this at all?
Sorry, what?
The rest of this stuff?
No, but we can put it on the pizzas. Wild yeast from the air, and then they've made it into like an instant product because you can make sourdough with wild yeast just like clabber, but instant yeast is like, I don't know how they make it, but they somehow make it so that you don't have to wait for the same amount of time as sourdough.
So I did this, and then it says like to add flour in it, and am I supposed to do that in like a bowl while I wait for this?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Yeah, they do that then.
I didn't know you made other things on your YouTube channel.
I usually just make stuff that has cheese in it. Like I don't make anything else that doesn't have cheese or clabber or some sort of sour cream.
So why are you making this?
Because it's made with clabber.
Oh.
And cheddar cheese. And sour cream.
So
3
all of
dairy
it.
products.
Is this yogurt?
Sour cream. It's a little thinner than usual.
Huh?
It's a little thinner than usual. I think it's because
It is. It's like juice.
I used a little bit of it. I poured a little bit of it out just after I made it yesterday. Because I needed a little bit of it and a little bit of heavy cream and something I was making. Was it good?
Uh-huh. Hot, but good.
Oh, hot. So good.
Mm-hmm.